Hi guys, and welcome to episode 5 of the Ultimate Physique Podcast. I'm your host Kyle Raggio, and today I'm talking with one of Australia's most influential fitness personalities and former FMG world champion, Hattie Boydle. Hattie is an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to mastering your mind in order to level up in all areas of your life. Not only talking the talk, but walking the walk. Hattie is by far one of the hardest workers I know, and her accolades are a testament to her work ethic. As always, if you get any value from today's episode, please leave me a comment, like this video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now let's jump into today's episode. We are on. Hattie Boydle, thanks for joining me.
Hi, thank you. I feel so honored that you reached out to have me on your podcast. I always feel I always feel honored. I think, oh, you want to talk to me? Thank you. So I appreciate it.
Well, I'm very appreciative that you decided to join. So I guess what I'd like to kick this off with for anyone who's maybe lived under a rock for the last 10, 15 years and has no idea who Hattie Boydle is, could you give us the short elevator pitch in terms of who you are and what you're about?
God, I don't do anything short, but I'll do my best. So my name is Hattie Boydle. I've been a world champion. I hold many titles in the fitness category. I've been in the industry for 18 years. I had a transformation company for 10 years. I've only just started a new company called Flex Method with my partner, which is also a transformation company. I am huge on mindset. I'd like to think I'm a motivational speaker, educator of Train the Female Athlete. What I feel like I've got to say this fast. Yeah, I guess my biggest passion is helping people. I feel so grateful for the work that we get to do. When I say we, you and I. And to be honest, I couldn't actually do anything else. As soon as I essentially got out of hospital, I went in and started studying my PT certification. And then 2 days after I turned 18, I was a personal trainer. And I haven't looked back. And as much as I'm an online coach now, which has also transitioned me into being an educator and a speaker, all I really know how to do and do well is help people. And I'll help people whether they pay me or not, because I think it's just to serve others, just to serve others, I think is such a beautiful thing for humans to do.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love the work that we get to do. So I feel very grateful.
Well, I think that's what's been really exciting, especially, recently moving to the Gold Coast and training at the gyms that you guys are all training at and kind of being immersed in that culture. It's been a real eye-opener for me, especially having conversations with you and getting to see you prep last year for your most recent show. How dedicated you are to your craft, but how just down to earth and, a genuine caring person you are, which is, unfortunately, it's pretty rare in this industry.
I appreciate that. That made me a little bit emotional. I could feel some little tears come to my eyes.
Well, this is going to be a good chat that I'm excited. So, like the big things that I wanted to get into, and I know you are really passionate about what you do. The way you present. I know you presented last year at the Clean Health event. This year at the Clean Health event. And a lot of people really take a lot of advice from the things that you have to say, both from an educational standpoint, but also a learned experience standpoint. So something that I'm really fascinated to learn a little bit more about you is the mindset and the way you approach doing everything. Because I think seeing how you attack your competitions, your business, just your general lifestyle, there's nothing sort of accidental about it, if that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So look, honestly, I feel so grateful for, I guess, the journey that I've had in my life. Like I named just earlier, I got out of hospital, and what I'm referring to is I suffered from an eating disorder.
Yep.
And I am so grateful. Not that I wish that upon anyone, but what I am grateful for is that little girl taught me so much. And I was able to grow from that time in my place. Like I got to hospital and I realized, holy shit, what have I done?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here by chance. I'm here by choice. And I started to recognize, well, how powerful the choices that we make, the ones that we're choosing to do over and over again, repetition.
Yeah.
It gets us somewhere, right? There's a reason we are process driven when it comes to wanting to achieve any type of goal in any area of our life, self-development, whether it's internal, external, right? We've got intrinsic or extrinsic motivators. And I realized if I put the same effort and intention that I just gave to myself to put myself into hospital for an eating disorder, if I channeled that somewhere positive, I could do something really great. And so it showed me that I had access to discipline. It showed me that I was a hard worker. It showed me that I could follow a process. It showed me so many things. It just needed some love in there. It needed to be contained, and it needed to have some self-compassion, which I think self-compassion is something we learn to have over time. And, every year older is another year wiser. And, that was 16 years ago. Fast forward, I'm 35 years old. You'd hope that I'd learned some lessons. And throughout my journey in the fitness industry, throughout my journey as a coach, as an athlete, I was able to apply those principles. And in a way, I've been an athlete my whole life, because before I went into the weights room, I was an elite gymnast. So again, I was exposed to hard work, discipline, skill mastery, a practice mindset, healthy competition with myself and with others. And again, these things, in whatever environment you put them in, can be really positive, but they can also be quite detrimental. And so it's just channeling all of these things into something that's really positive and powerful. And I think intention is everything. And that's something I speak to a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess I've just had I will say I've made a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
And I like that I only learned the hard way. So here we are, like, to get where I am today. I have messed up so many times, but I've also learned a lot of things. And so taking all the lessons that I've learned, I'm like, well, how do I put that into application? And then how do we, there's so much that I've learned from bodybuilding. I learned to be organized. I learned to be prepared. I learned to have patience, right? I learned lots of different things that we need for pretty much any goal in your life, whether it's a physical or it's career, work, relational. Yeah. So that's a bit of me.
Yeah, which is fantastic to hear. And I think looking at it objectively, so many people want the fast, quick answer, as in, like, what's the best way to do this? What's the best training program? What's the best approach to, achieve X outcome? When you just kind of hit the nail on the head. It really just takes time and practice and putting in the reps, regardless of what the outcome is. So it's no accident that you become a world champion. It's just literally like, hey, I sharpened my sword every day for the last, decade, and it led to an outcome that I kind of work towards.
Effort and consistency for a long time is going to get you somewhere. You just got to make sure you're directing it. You're on the right direction, and we can only manage what gets measured. And I think, again, like, learning so much from bodybuilding and strength training, it's like, you need to know where you're at in order for you to know where you're going.
Yeah.
And I think when we have a process, it can take some of the emotions out, because we're very emotional people, and our stories have meaning. And so whatever story we create around something can maybe intercept things in the wrong way. So when we've got data, like, I find data really helpful.
Yeah.
Even being able to measure yourself and reflect on yourself and, like, am I giving this 100%? Now, something I always think about is training and nutrition. It's an honesty policy. Like, are you really giving it everything? And it's not about doing more. It's about doing what's in front of you at the best of your ability, until you've rinsed and repeat that. And then you can go and look for the next thing. And I often think, like, what's the best is never, or is very rarely, the best question to ask, because, again, it's to the individual, and it's kind of limiting that question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of begs the question that, like, what might be good for you isn't necessarily what's good for someone else who might be just starting their training journey, or just started, with their nutrition. It's like, you kind of just need to do, baby steps first in order to get to somewhere. In terms of, I guess, the big thing that I want to touch on, and you kind of mentioned about the eating disorder and kind of that really shaping a lot of the things that you did moving forward. I guess, looking at it as a female, when you kind of go into the realm of, like, social media and these kind of external perceptions of how that shapes the way you want to do things, how do you go about it, or how has that really shaped your thought process in terms of how you move forward, coming out of something like that, in terms of the eating disorder?
Because it was so long ago, like, really, I didn't really have social media at that time. Like, I had Facebook.
Yeah.
How the world is right now is so different from when we first started, and it has its pros and it has its cons. And my God, I couldn't imagine being, a teenage male or female right now in this world, because your brain hasn't fully formed and you don't know what's what. You're so vulnerable and of influence at that time. and you don't know it. You don't know it till later. You know, hindsight gives us lots of lessons later, never in that moment. And I think I'm really grateful that in that time I didn't have social media, because I still had an expectation of myself, especially becoming a personal trainer and then getting into fitness modeling. I think my parents were like, oh my God, are we about to go down another rabbit hole?
Yeah.
But something I promised myself was if this got unhealthy, I will stop.
Yeah.
And of course, whenever it comes to, I think, with disordered eating patterns, which I don't know if you've ever had one, but it's common amongst males and not just
Absolutely.
females.
Yeah.
It sticks around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like those things that you fly on the wall and it kind of like just slowly, like
Yeah.
it eventually drops, but it sticks around for a while. And it really does take a lot of work to unstick a lot of those things. And so we have social media where we have got an abundance of these aesthetically pleasing physiques and perfect highlighted reels and all these things. And unless you really know that it is a highlight reel, it can be so hard to not compare yourself. And, you know, something I always say is smoke and mirrors. Like even when I post like my elevator selfies, I'm like, I look huge and jacked. And you know me, I'm actually tiny.
Yeah.
And I write smoke and mirrors, because what you see right now, like it's me and that's the lighting, but I look massive. Like but I'm not that big. And so again, what we see on social media is like really distorted.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be really careful about how much time you spend on that. And I know I've kind of gone a little bit off track, but I'm really grateful that in my time of recovery, I wasn't exposed to that, because I don't know how my recovery would have been with that in my face. Like I reckon it would have been a lot harder, knowing that it was already hard. But I think as you get older, we're just always learning, I think, is the best thing to say, Carl. Like,
Yeah.
even, I don't know if you do the same, but even now, like one thing I notice is like when you look at all these perfect images and then you go outside and you look at normal people, you go, oh my God, my vision of what I thought was normal is actually not normal. Oh God, it's actually social media, you know, but think about how much time we spend on our phones. So even myself, who knows that it's all highlight reels, like sometimes I'm like, oh wow, I've got to remember this is not real.
Yeah. And that's a really good segue to a point that I wanted to bring up. And I suppose it applies to both men and women, but maybe specifically more to women who are looking to compete and to kind of get into that realm. But it's the building phase. And I know you've spoken about this a lot, but it's the time away from competing. It's the time away from dieting. And it's almost that point of having to get a little bit uncomfortable and not being like Instagram shredded all the time. But it's what's necessary in order to, you know, to create progress, right? To create the physique that you need in order to be competitive. So how, as someone, you know, like yourself, who is competitive at that world stage, like how do you deal with the head noise that comes along with that of, you know, getting a little bit fluffier or not being so shredded and kind of living in that, you know, uncomfortable space?
There's actually two things I want to share on that question. The first one I'll answer like for my own personal, and another thing is a perspective I want to share with people.
Sure.
These days, I really don't have an issue with putting body fat on. All I care about is building that muscle. And let me tell you, it is so fucking slow that I must admit lately I'm very frustrated. I've never been so frustrated in my life with how slow it feels. I literally said to my partner the other day, I was like, I'd rather be chubby and thick with muscle than lean and so far beyond, like so far away from the muscle that I want to build.
Yeah. That's
how I feel right now. You know, obviously there's a bit of frustration in there, but I can always laugh about it. I don't have, lucky, I've worked so hard on myself that I just don't have this attachment to my body like that.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, or not one of the reasons, but one of the things I noticed is because people these days don't want to see perfection. They want to see reality. They want to know that you and I are just the same. And this is going to lead me to the other perspective I want to share. It's if anyone here is listening and they are so attached to what they look like and they think that's the thing for social media, likes don't make you money. A business does. And someone wants to know that they can trust you the way you trust yourself embarking on a build. You can't take people down the path they haven't been before. If you're a coach and you can't go into a build because you're scared of fat, you're lying to your client to say that we can do it. And so this is a thing of self-leadership, you know, lead by example, go and do the thing. That's it. Likes are just likes. That's it. What builds a business is seeing you do the thing that you stand for, which is building your body, not being afraid to put a bit of weight on, knowing that it's just a bit of fat. And this is what I say. It's like, just like the diet phase is just a phase, the build is just a phase, and competing's not going anywhere, right? Would you rather spend the time building that muscle, knowing that you're going to have a fantastic physique in a year and a half, versus trying to get on stage now, feeling awful, looking at your physique, being like, haven't made the changes, getting on stage, not getting what you want? Like, again, we're building this body for life, but also building muscle takes time, and it's just some body fat. And I think we have to really change the association with gaining weight. And let me tell you, if you stay process driven, then when you see the millimeters go up, when you see your strength improve, when you see your body start to become fuller, your glutes get bigger, your quads get bigger, whatever it is that you're trying to grow, and you are staying on the path of the process, let me tell you, you will look at that scale and be like, I'm doing it. I'm building the muscle. Yeah. Versus those that attach themselves to the fear of gaining weight. That's all you see. You will get what you're looking for. Trust me.
Yeah.
So the process is there to guide you and for you to practice staying in control, because that's what this fear of body fat is, right? It's the feeling of out of control. So what do we do if we want to manage control? We do the thing. We practice we follow the process, right? And then that leads us with the association of I'm strong, I'm building muscle, I'm doing the thing. So you will get what you look for.
Yeah.
Also, we don't see ourselves as we are, we see ourselves as we feel, and how we feel is so heavily tied to the actions and the habits that we're doing. So when we are aligning our habits with building muscle, with growing, with one rep at a time, with every meal is a meal to build my body. Yeah. When we look in the mirror, we feel pretty empowered. And then vice versa. When we're not sticking to the plan, when we're not training hard enough, when we're eating above our macros, when we're being too flexible with our approach, you bet that when you see the weight go up, you're disappointed. Yeah. Because our identities, we're so attached to our habits and our identity.
You know what? I'm so glad you brought up the point earlier about the honesty policy with like tracking and just kind of measuring. Because I think that's something that's so important, especially for exactly what you just said. If you aren't totally being honest and like sticking to that process, and maybe your results aren't reflective of what's happening, it's like, okay, were you totally nailing everything? Were you being honest with your tracking, with your food intake? And in reality, muscle growth is so slow. And especially as a small female, it's minuscule.
Me, honestly. So like this year, it's really challenged me, I must say. I'm like, I don't remember it being this slow, but it is what it is.
And look, and I guess as well, at the level that you're at as an advanced athlete, it is so slow. And I think that's something for a beginner to kind of take away from this is like, you are totally advanced world champion level physique. It's like your progress is so slow and so minuscule, but it doesn't mean that your process, the process that you follow needs to be changed. It's like, hey, I need to do it even more so and work even harder.
Yeah. Yeah. The degree of being able to go off task is so small. Like with a beginner, God, I'd kill to go back to my newbie gains and do it better. Like I really fucked up my newbie gains. Like when I first started training, I didn't follow a plan. Like I just did what I wanted, shocked the muscle. Like back then, like 18 years ago, that's what the thing was. Yeah. And I really messed up that time. And I had a client who I got ready for stage, and she got the most amazing results in the first 2 years. Yeah. And now it's like a little bit slower, and it's like, what's happened? Am I doing something wrong? It's like, no, you just don't have the same newbie gains anymore. Yeah. It's 4 years later. The muscle takes a long time now. Like you get diminishing returns, but you have to work hard and you have to work smart. Actually, as we get stronger, we don't need as much volume. And I think that's the thing with females is like, we get stronger and want more volume. And yes, we might be able to tolerate it for a period of time, but eventually we can't. And so, changing should change over time, based off how much volume you can really recover from. And of course, how much load you're putting through the system.
And that really comes back to that like quality over quantity scenario. It's like, as a beginner, you can literally do anything in any, abundance, and you're probably going to grow at some point, or something's going to happen. And then as you get more advanced, it's like, cool, I need to be really laser focused and really specific with what I'm doing now in order to get marginal progress along the way.
Mm.
And even, I guess, seeing your training too. And this is probably something that I wanted to bring up around training, because I know you've dealt with some injuries and some setbacks. But in terms of your training now, how has that changed from maybe when you started and even some of the clients that you worked with? Like, how do you approach training now, like I said, as you get more advanced?
Well, like I just shared, when I first started training, I was not doing much. Like, I was doing everything wrong, what I would consider wrong these days.
Yeah.
I think the biggest and the best progress I ever made was when I started strength training with
Yeah.
Sebastian Loeb. And that's because I was just exposed to a new way of training, and then I just got really good at it.
Yeah.
That was squatting and deadlifting, multiple times a week. I actually barely did any hip thrusts or anything but I was so dedicated to strength and I was so good at volume that I could actually combine the two of them really well. And I pushed that for a really long time. It's only in the last couple of years that I started to get injured, and training has changed a lot. Like, I've only just started deadlifting again. And honestly, if I could start squatting and deadlifting, I would absolutely. That's just how I enjoy training.
Yeah.
And so now it's very modified, and it's very, very posterior dominant actually at the moment. And the way in which has changed is, I guess it's just so much more, I don't want to say it's much more thought out, but it kind of has to be, because I'm now trying to minimize a disc flare up.
Yeah.
Whereas before I didn't have that in the background. It was, how heavy can we squat? How many days can I do like squat and recover from? How many days can I deadlift and recover from? And so I really did have a good decade of some seriously good training under my belt where I got super strong.
Yeah.
And at the moment, unfortunately, I just don't have the exposure to that. And I really do see the difference in, like I said, like I'm saying, my muscle mass is so slow growing.
Yeah.
Because I'm such a big responder to those heavy loads.
Yeah.
And that's why that was the bulk of my training, like the lower rep ranges, and just being able to tolerate, squats and deadlifts like 2 or 3 times a week, still recover. I guess pivoting is important when it comes to training.
Yeah.
I had an attachment to a lot of exercises, and I noticed that I really did beat myself up a few times with language that was not helpful, like saying, "Oh, I used to be," and it's like, okay, but if the goal is to get back there, what do I need to do to get back there? And I think that's the thing I'm trying to focus on, knowing that it still might not be the same, but how can I get as close to that without injuring myself?
Sure.
So I just feel like right now it's a lot more technical in terms of like exercise selection and then managing the load and managing the frequency. I do only upper body once a week. I do lower body 3 times a week now. I used to always train, I used to train 7 days a week, then I went to 6 days a week, then I went to 5 days a week, and now it's only 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And I think the thing to remember is, in the beginning, we can tolerate a lot more volume because we're not as strong.
Yeah.
I still pushed a lot of volume for a long time, but these days, as I've hit 30, things change. And so I have really had to look at, my total amount of training that I can actually recover from. And I think this is where, everyone always asks, like, what's the right amount of volume? I'm like, it is so independent.
Yeah.
It is so independent. And so we always start with the minimum effective dose, knowing that we've got room to move, versus starting with the highest amount of volume, and then you're going to have to drop back and drop back and drop back. So again, the body's always changing, and what determines what we can recover from as well is not just the training, it's the total amount of stress that's going on in our body. Like, I've had a lot of stress this year and even the year before when I left my company.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I was under, like, my HRV plummeted. And I just had to be so careful about how much training I could do, like, for actually to get a benefit out of it. So I think it's just something that we have to be quite responsive to.
Yeah.
When it comes to knowing how much is enough. And, that thing, listening to your body keeps a score.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It will tell you when it needs a rest. And so it is a tightrope and a learning curve always when it comes to learning, like how much volume is too much volume or how much volume is enough.
Yeah. It's, you know what, it's so refreshing chatting to you about this and really gaining an understanding of how you look at training methodically, and how logically, it's kind of laid out, because I think so many people get confused around, like, again, coming back to the social media thing. Oh, this person does X, or I saw this cool workout on social media. And you see people in the gym, unfortunately, just doing random stuff with no rhyme or reason. And it's like, someone even at your caliber who can logically lay out what they do, it's very simple. It's just done really, really well.
Yeah, I've recently started posting my workouts again, and I stopped doing it for a while because I was watching some people do my workouts, and I was like, this is not good for you.
Yeah.
Like this is not good. And you know, I have people being like, I'm going to add this to my training program. What does it do? And I'm like, it's not for you.
Yeah.
It's just not, like, you don't need to add more. Do your program first and then revisit it. Like, and I think this is just what we get when we're exposed to like a lot of Gen Pop people who are just like, you know, highlight reel, see all these fancy things. They see a girl with big glutes. That's the workout for me. I'm like, so many. I look at some of the girls with big glutes and workouts. I'm like, that's all you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
some people are just like genetically, you look at the rest of their physique.
Yeah.
There's one thing that's hypertrophied. That's it.
Yeah.
You're like, you know, some people, my quads, I wouldn't even have to touch them and they'll explode.
Yeah.
Like, that's unfortunately not my glutes, the body part that doesn't have, it has a very minimal effective dose and it will dose up, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, and everyone's learning, but I think what's a really important takeaway is like, it's not what the best exercise is. It's what is the purpose that we're trying to get, or the outcome we're trying to get from this particular program.
Yeah.
And then we're going to put a series of exercises together.
Yeah, and you nailed that. It's literally like, it's not what the best thing is. It's how can I apply certain principles to my individual situation and then get the best out of that. It's not just like randomly doing a bunch of stuff and, hoping it sticks.
Yeah, and do it for a minimum of 6 weeks and add progressive overload, and then decide if you've got the outcome that you want. And look, most people, I always say variation too early kills progression.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just often what we see, with a lot of people. It's like they're just changing the program way too early because they see someone else do something. It's like, do that next. Just do this really well, and you'll probably get what you're looking for. And then you can go and change up some of the variations of exercises. But again, people think they need an entirely new program. It's like, no, you actually just need to get really fucking good at that exercise and then start to load it up.
Yeah. And that's so tricky, I think, for a lot of I suppose newbies as well, kind of going back to that, because they're going to struggle with the concept of just doing, unfortunately, the boring stuff for long periods of time. And that's really where progress sits, whether you're a beginner or not. It's doing the same shit over and over again and executing it really well.
Yeah, look, this depends on what lens you see it through is the answer you want to get. And, as I sit here and say, do this for 6 weeks and repeat it, there's a thing called training morale that, scientists and researchers don't really talk about, but you bet training enthusiasts do.
Yeah.
And when people get bored, the effort goes down.
100%.
So they're also not going to enjoy what they do. But we also need a level of repetition to get some sort of adaptation.
Yep.
So if you're someone that likes to change up your program too often, like at least give it at least 4 weeks. But yeah, progression is found in the repetition, the effort and consistency. And but you also have to do what you love to put effort in. Otherwise, you're most likely going to get a subpar outcome anyway.
Yeah, if you're not enjoying it, you're just not going to do it, are you? So that probably moves me into I guess another question or another topic that I wanted to bring up. And this is probably more so to a point that you alluded to earlier about environment and just kind of being exposed to new things. So you're someone that I've seen have lots of really positive like mentors or influences in your career. And one that we both share, Dr. Tony Bataji, who I had the pleasure of chatting to a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So how important is that to you, exposing yourself to those different environments? And I guess for other people out there, how important is it for them to kind of seek these new experiences and kind of immerse themselves in different situations to learn and grow?
It is everything. Mentors can teach you so much. And because I live on the Gold Coast now, as you know, with you, but I lived in Sydney for my whole life. And I am so grateful that I got to work so closely with two people who I consider also my best friends,
Yeah.
Dr. Tony Batashi and Sebastian Oreb. And I got to learn from them every single day. They really helped shape the coach I am, but also the athlete I am today. And I really don't, this is a big call, but I don't think I would be where I am today without either of them in their own unique way. This is something I share with Bass all the time because he's had such a big impact on my life, and he was the one that actually got me into social media.
Wow.
Funny enough, I didn't have any interest. But learning from others who have done what you want to do is so important. It's funny, we only hear about people's mistakes after they've been successful.
Yeah.
And you can do it on your own. That's fine. You'll probably still achieve what you want to achieve, but learning from someone else who's got the cheat sheet and the blueprint and can give you some advice, not necessarily tell you what to do, but show you and say, this is what the options are.
Yeah.
I think is super important. And just being around high level people and people that want to see you succeed and want to see you level up and want the fitness industry to be something great, because people talk about the fitness industry being a saturated market, but how many are great coaches? You can only be a great coach by having great leaders, learning from people, right? And I always think about this, there's so many people to help. Trust me, you are not going to run out of people to help.
Sure.
And people want to work with me because I am me, and people want to work with you because you are you. And we have our own way of delivering things and our own skill sets, and we both get results, but we do it a certain way and they want a certain environment. So the reason I'm saying that is to not be afraid to, learn from someone else or think that you are less than or you don't know enough because you want to learn from someone else. No, you just want to be exceptional.
Yeah.
You want to be great, not just good. You want to be great. You want to be better than other people in your craft. And my mentors shaped, like I said, they shaped my coaching, myself as an athlete, so much. I've done all of their courses so many times, and I still go to their events and I still think I'm still learning from you. I've heard this before, but I'm still learning from you. And mentorships, are the fast track. Yes, you pay for them, but let me tell you, you'll make that money back. That's the reason you have a mentor, tenfold and better, and you'll do a better job and have a better service and help people better. And ultimately, that's the goal. So yeah, I'm a massive fan of mentorships.
It's so important. And I even spoke to Tony about this as well, because similar to you, I think I did Tony's first course maybe in like 2014 or something, like so long ago now.
GPP one?
I did all of
that
them.
one? Yeah.
I
That's how
think we did one together, I think oh God, it must have been like 2017 or something. It was at like an RSL club in the northern.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember.
Long time ago.
Yes.
So I think that was maybe his fat loss one or something like that. But
fat loss fundamentals.
Yeah, there we go. So like, so cool to be able to have these conversations 10 years later, and Tony being a great example of that, obviously. But I think how it shapes you, exactly like you said, as a coach, as an athlete, because you kind of have all these really positive external influences that you can take what's useful and kind of make your own approach to really find your own way as an athlete and as a coach as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be open-minded.
Sure.
Like Bass and Tony, I learned from both of them, and they have very different systems.
Yeah.
Really different. And I just took what I took this and I took this, and I could apply it to the individual in front of me. Right. So I think, again, like when it comes to like looking at mentors or people that you want to be led by, something that I do want to invite you just to be aware of is like, people that are like in absolutes, that's kind of scary. Like there's so many ways to skin a cat. And I think it's important to be, again, open-minded, because we are working with an individual body. And this one approach might not be the best approach for that person. And so can you work with multiple people and take what you want and then create your own? Like ultimately, that's what your coaching service is going to be.
Exactly.
But Yeah. And so there are some people that I probably will never learn from because they're just like cult, this is it. And everyone else is dumb after this, and it's like, no, this is not true.
Yeah.
And another thing that I always look at is like, how do they speak about others?
Yeah.
So I like to invest in people who are genuinely awesome, really good human beings,
Hmm.
but they're also highly intelligent.
And it has to be such a, I think, a collaboration in a sense that you, exactly like you said, you want to see other people succeed. You want to kind of hear everyone's opinion and you want to be able to make an informed decision on what you need to do moving forward, as opposed to just that dogmatic approach of like, this is the only way and nothing else matters.
Yeah. And then to shit on other people's work is something I have a problem with. I'm like, what about we have a conversation around it instead of
Mm.
an argument, and maybe we could get some pretty cool things out of it.
Yeah. There's also, I think, the flip side of this, and this is where it does get tricky, with the amount of information that exists online. And I think I'm sure the conversations you have, the conversations I have with people on social media, consults with clients, is just people getting lost in like way
Mhm.
too much stuff, this sea of information that like I don't even know what to do anymore. What the hell do I do now? Like paralysis by analysis.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, again, the internet is a wonderful place and can find anything we want to look for. But I think something that the internet misses a lot of the time is context.
Mhm.
Great information, no context, no application. All this
Yeah.
information, no application. People don't need more information, but they do need a way of applying it. And
Yeah.
that's generally why when they reach out to a coach, it's like, I don't know where to start, this confusion. And I think it's great to be exposed to all these things. But another thing we also have is that Me Too movement, in the way that if it works for me, it works for you.
Yeah.
It's like, not necessarily, and I guess that's something we do really see. And we are very much, everyone wants to share their experience and everyone wants to share their opinion on the internet. Everyone's got a voice on the internet,
Yeah.
and it can be really dangerous. Useful at times, dangerous in others. So I think just anyone who's like on the internet and you're just exposed to so much information, just be aware of context,
Yeah.
because just because you've heard something and it might have worked for someone doesn't necessarily it's the right information for you. And then how do we know? Well, that's the trickier part.
That's the fuck around, find out as you progress.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of big points that I wanted to bring up to then to kind of shift gears a little bit away from training and more in terms of maybe diet and lifestyle. So uh obviously knowing you and Coben, like you guys travel lots, you're always kind of out and enjoying food and enjoying life to the fullest. And I think there's this big maybe misconception that like tracking is really what's the word? It's like it's very limiting. People think that like by tracking your nutrition, you kind of have to, cut out all the fun stuff in life. So how has your approach really changed and how do you view that now with a more flexible approach and being able to kind of do all the fun stuff, but still get results at the end of the day?
I started tracking my nutrition in 2011 when I still noticed that I had some residue
Yeah.
of limiting beliefs around food. And I was exposed to Lane Norton and I was like, I want to learn to be like that.
Yeah.
And flexible dieting literally helped me improve my relationship with food. And it wasn't to control anything, but it was to be in control.
Yeah.
Right. So to control and be in control in the way in which I interpret that are very different things.
Yeah.
And again, intention is everything, right? So if we're using this tool to restrict, limit, and we don't know how to operate without it, we haven't used it as a tool.
Yeah.
Right. We've strangled ourselves with it. And I think that is when a tool of any kind, whether it's a meal plan that people think I'm using a meal plan, but I can't do anything outside it. Again, meal plans are great, but not when you're restricted by it.
Yeah.
Tracking your nutrition is great, but not when you're limited by it. And so I looked at this as this wonderful tool because none of my friends were at that time in my life were in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
So I was like, how do I go and do this thing and achieve these things as a fitness model, but not miss out from being with my friends?
Mm-hmm.
And so it gave me this tool that I had to learn how to use, just like anyone else.
Yeah.
And I had to give myself learn the rules and the guidelines of, getting micronutrients in and then allowing myself to have a little bit of chocolate, which I have every single day.
Love
Chocolate
it.
time. chalky o'clock. And I wanted to learn this flexible approach, right? I've been tracking for, God, 13 years. And I'm a lot more flexible in terms of like, now these days when I travel and I'm not in prep, I know exactly how I need to eat and what to eat. It's not like, and so I have a really healthy relationship with food. I've got a really healthy relationship with my body.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy tracking because I love data.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm actually trying to eat as much as I can to get the job done.
Yeah.
To manage this goal that I have. And so I think how we look at these tools is ultimately going to shift our experience of it. Like the intention drives the experience. So this is where we often hear people say, it's restrictive, it's obsessive. I'm like, that might have been your experience.
Yeah.
Let's just acknowledge that that's your experience and it's not someone else's. And so the other day I put up this thing on social media and I said, is eating out sabotaging your results? And someone wrote, just live. And I'm like, your idea of just living and my idea of just living are different.
Yeah.
But for me, how I like to do things, I feel freedom. I feel freedom in my body because I follow these habits. And I just look at, again, my association with tracking my food is it's just a tool. In the same way I track my weights, it's just a tool. It's nothing more than that. So the practice would be, can it be neutral? Can it just be the tool, something to guide us versus something that we are restricted by, something that makes us feel overwhelmed, right? If we're feeling overwhelmed by this thing, we need to change the association with this goal, right? Or this tool, sorry, not necessarily the goal, and say, can I make this thing a way of just tracking how much I eat? Because if we stripped away all the emotions, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up too, by the way.
Stripped away all the emotions. Tracking your food, weighing your food, tracking into an app is literally just measuring how much energy your body is eating for a specific outcome.
Yeah.
That is it, black and white. Everything else is the emotions that we pour into this thing.
Yeah.
And so the practice is, can we just make it this neutral thing? Just this thing that we practice that gives a result in the same way that we're going to track our finances. Like,
I'm literally so glad you said that.
Go out, but we also know that's our fault. But yeah, so I guess, again, I like to travel, but I like to stay in shape. I like to travel and I like to progress. I like to eat out, but I also like to eat my own food.
Yeah.
And so 80% of my meals throughout the week, you bet they're tracked and weighed by me and measured and cooked at home because I love that.
Yeah.
And then I enjoy that 20% going out because when Kobe and I travel and all we do is eat out, I fucking hate it. I just don't feel good.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy eating out anymore. It's too much.
Yeah.
So it is finding, again, everyone's idea of balance is different.
Yeah.
And I think it is finding something that feels balanced and healthy to you. But again, I like to name like my nutrition and my training, just my self-care. Because I know when I'm doing those things, I feel really settled. And then I don't have to have an emotional touch in my brain, an emotional tax in my brain that then clouds everything else that I do. And I can go and do the good work that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing to think about.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I'm so glad you brought it up because it's so important to look at how you frame these certain things. And I think the way you just kind of described that is so important. It's a really positive experience and it's something that you do in order to feel good, to look good, to kind of enjoy what you do. And I feel so many people use it as this negative thing to kind of punish themselves or to really use it in a negative light. So I know just coaching people and kind of having those conversations, it's difficult to break that pattern for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are stuck in that mindset of it's a way of punishing themselves backhandedly because maybe they're not doing the work or maybe they're not tracking as well as they should be.
Yeah. I like to say it's a practice. We're just practicing. And in the same way, if you label housework a chore, how does it feel when you do it? Like a fucking chore.
Yeah.
So language, you've probably heard me say like language is super powerful. So a weapon of love or destruction. How do we want to use it? The language that we use in association with things can reframe things. So I often say rename it to reframe it. Rename it with something else so it reframes something in the system.
Yeah.
And it is hard. Like I said, the eating disorder or disordered eating, this is a part of it. It's like residue, it sticks and eventually it falls off. Like it is really hard. And I often think about, diet histories with people is like unclawing cat's nails. You know how they like to claw on things and you got to like pick it off? That's what it is like changing someone's belief systems around food.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it is a belief system that has come from somewhere, whether it's been of influence of family and friends, the internet, magazines, it's come from somewhere. And now we have to dissect it and redirect it and rename it and reframe it and give it a whole new experience. Because I have a sense that if the whole world tracked their nutrition and they had a healthy association with tracking it, we probably wouldn't have obesity, and we probably wouldn't have overeating, and we probably wouldn't have a lot of actually like binge disorders, because people would learn how to eat properly.
Yeah.
It's what it's for, to make informed decisions, to have a balanced approach to your nutrition, not restricted. Yes, restriction in calories if you're trying to lose weight, but we have to have boundaries. Like this is a thing. Humans need boundaries. If we didn't have boundaries on food, we'd all be fat.
Yeah.
I'd be fat. You'd be fat.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so trust me, I'm a fatty at heart. If I wasn't so vain, I'd be fat. I say that loud and clear. Like I love food. This helps me to have a little bit of food that I enjoy, knowing that there's got to be an off button. Even if my stomach says more, my mind says that's enough.
Yeah.
But it allows me to have a really healthy boundary around food.
It's so refreshing to hear that, because I think a lot of people might think that the athlete side of you would be very robotic, and it's like, oh, I don't eat anything, naughty, or I don't eat anything off plan. It's always like exactly
Every day.
It's cool to see that you can compete at that level and to kind of have the level of dedication that you have and still be flexible and still enjoy the things that you enjoy. Because I think, again, so many people just look at it in that negative light, and it really doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that difficult.
Well, this is the thing. Again, we're dealing with individuals, and I've got a saying. I've got two sayings. I'm going to say them both. Freedom requires a different type of discipline. Right? Freedom requires a different type of discipline. Freedom with money requires you to work hard to make the money.
Yeah.
But then because you have the money, you feel a sense of freedom that you can do the things you want. When it comes to our bodies, I don't look like this for free. I train really hard. I do things I don't want to do, like just showing up to the gym. I don't want to. I wake up at 5:45 a.m. to get my steps in no matter what. I track my nutrition, right? And so that allows me to have freedom in this body that I said, I don't care, when I'm heavy, and I don't care when I'm lighter. Like I just, get to do this thing. So that's my freedom, but it comes at a cost. And so whatever goal that you want in your life, the freedom of that goal comes at a requirement. Okay. So that was the first one. And the second thing was, I think that like there is some suffering that happens, like to an extent, whether when you're in a build, you have to eat beyond, being, having like feeling hungry.
Yeah.
And on the other side, when you go into a deficit, you're going to be a little bit hungry. And I think, again, because we're dealing with so many people, like some people do make bodybuilding really unhealthy. Like that's also the truth. And they can do it in a way that when other people see it, of course, it looks unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like in ways, there is an unhealthiness to the sport. And the thing that I've always tried to do, Carl, from like the moment I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try and do it right, was how do I do it as healthy as I can?
Yeah.
Knowing that there's going to be a sticking point, in prep where it's not healthy, like being super lean. Even if I get my period, it's still not healthy, So, and everyone's got their own experience. There are some people that should not do competitions. They just shouldn't. It's not healthy for them. And then there are other people that thrive in it. It's hard.
Yeah. And this is a difficult conversation, especially with being in the coaching space, telling people that like, hey, maybe this isn't the right idea for you. And maybe if you've got a previous history of eating disorders that you haven't kind of dealt with, this only exacerbates that situation, and it kind of masks a lot of those behaviors with, oh, I'm just prepping, or I'm in a contest prep. It's like, are you really though?
Yes. Look, when someone says to me, I want to get on stage, I say, cool, prep starts now. And they'll be like, what? I'm like, yeah. you've got about 3 years before you get on stage, and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And this is what you're going to show me. Because the same process that gets us lean is the same process that's going to help us build muscle.
Yep.
It's the same process that's going to get us out of our deficit. The process does not change if you think about it, because when you're building muscle, you're tracking your nutrition, you're training hard, you're managing your progress, you're sleeping well, you're recovering.
Yep.
Guess what else you're doing when you're doing a cut? You're tracking your macros, you're training hard, you're tracking your progression, you're managing your sleep, you're managing your recovery.
Yep.
Guess what happens when you're maintaining your weight? You're tracking your nutrition, you're training with intensity, you're tracking your progress. Nothing changes. And so if someone can't sail in and out of those without a contest prep at the other side, they are not ready to contest prep. Because you are showing me that you cannot follow a process independent of this external validation on the end. Don't show me what you can do in 12 weeks. Show me what you can do at either side of those things. And then we'll make a decision that you're ready for prep. Because there's a few things. One, most people have not built the muscle capacity to handle the amount of volume and training output that it needs to be able to handle it. Then the other is you haven't built the mental capacity yet to love your body in a build and go be able to do a healthy diet without, an aggressive cut. You don't know what it's like to even know what it's like to be hungry, because most people get hungry and what do they want to do? Eat. And they complain about being hungry. It's like, you're not even tapping into what it takes to get on stage. You're just in a diet. What about the hours? The hours and hours of cardio. Like my partner had to do 20,000 steps a day. It was like 4 or 5 walks a day, 90 minutes of cardio. He ate 1,800 calories and he's 120 kilos. And then he had to weight train. Like, not many people are cut out for that. And this is when girls would have to do the same thing. Like I've heard of girls being like on 800 calories and that output. And you think, again, it's like this, it's glamorized. I love competing. I have a great time competing. It's easy for me. But it's not easy for everyone else. And I'm not saying don't do it, but the reality of it is you need some time under the bar, practicing how to build and cut and sail yourself throughout the process before you even get to stage. So the moment you decide you want to compete, it starts now, but that doesn't mean you're getting on stage this year. It's in 2 years when you've built the body, the foundation, the relationship, so that you can have a really stable and healthy prep that you can, because you're going to have to sail out of it after. And that's where people break down.
You know what? And this is like having conversations with you and other people who are competing at the highest level. It's no surprise that it happens because you are so process driven. And I think so many people go into it being outcome driven, as in like, oh, once I win this, or when I get my pro card, or, they do it for sort of external validation. And then, more often than not, they don't get the result they want. And it's this huge disappointment, where I think if you're exactly like you said, you kind of go through the process, you enjoy the process, and it's about the journey and the things that happen along the way, as opposed to like, when I get to X, I'm going to be happy, which, is a surefire way of being disappointed, really.
Yeah. And we grow in the process. Like, the beautiful thing about doing hard things is how much you learn about yourself. And to be honest, when show day comes, I'm like, fuck. I've got to, like, this
it's over now, damn.
Yeah, I'm like, whereas most people like can't wait for it to be over. I'm like, no, I love this. Like, the show day is my least favorite day. Not saying I hate it, but it's just not my favorite. And yeah, look, everyone's allowed to do whatever they want to do, and everyone's going to do what they want to do. But if you really want to know the best way to do it, or a healthier way to do it, it's like, give yourself time, but don't waste the time, right? Because time goes really quick. And we just talked about building muscle takes time. That's the thing that most people need. The diet, the fat loss, that's easy, right? It's the building muscle first and building those foundations and having habits that support you, because they're going to need to support you in the prep, and they're going to need to support you out of the prep.
This is probably a point that I wanted to, I guess, even hear your thoughts on, is that post prep or after the diet. And I think this is where, again, going back to people may be doing it for the wrong reasons, and they kind of want this outcome. And like you said, the show day's over. Contest prep, is arguably the shortest time. It's 12, 16, 20, 24 weeks. It's done. The show's over in a day. And then all of the hype, all the fun's gone. And I think a lot of people find themselves in this like no man's land of like, shit, what do I do now? Show's over. I have no reason to, not eat food. And they find themselves in this perpetual pit of just maybe overeating and kind of creating this bad negative environment post-comp. So I guess to kind of wrap that up in a question, for you personally, how had that changed? And was that ever an issue for you? And then I guess what habits and systems did you develop in order to kind of overcome that?
Great question. And it's definitely changed. Like when I started competing in 2011, it was like the blind leading the blind. Like I had no idea. No one talked about the reverse phase. No one talked about post-competition blues.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't a thing. Like it was a thing, but no one talked about it.
Yeah.
And I did realize like after a show, I was like nowhere.
Yeah.
And that was the point where I was like, this has to change. Like I'm grateful I've got a level of awareness. It's like, I'm not enjoying this.
Mm-hmm.
This has to change. And that's when I started to like reach out to a coach. I worked with Lane Norton. He was probably someone that really helped me on the straight and narrow in terms of like my flexible dieting and then going, well, this is a process I could lead myself into. It's the same process I can lead myself out.
Yep.
And to be honest, it takes practice. Like I've had some clients that have absolutely nailed a reverse the first go, and I'm like, whoa. And others, it's like, got to prepare them. Like the thing about the post-competition is a dump in the nervous system.
Oh yeah.
So when we're in prep, we are in absolute fight. So we're in this sympathetic state, get it all done, adrenaline, cortisol, up, because we have to. And what goes up must come down. So that post-competition blue, that drop, and then it's hard to follow a process. You kind of can't. You have to get regulated before you can start to follow a process again. And I think something that's really important and what I share with my clients is nothing should change in terms of like your process.
Yeah.
Right. So the same process that took you into the show is the same process we're going to use coming out. And I give them, some guidelines around like you can have this meal out, you can have this meal out, but for the first 6 weeks, we're locking this shit down.
Yeah.
The mistake that people make is they go too flexible. And what's unhealthy as well, and it's not their fault, is that when family and friends, finally you're out of prep, let's go eat. It's like, can we just hold that off for a month?
Yeah.
Because diving straight back into that and highly palatable foods and again, our nervous system, when we start to go out and in social events, we become very dysregulated. And so our ability to tune into when we're full, which we don't even know for a first couple of weeks after a prep, like our satiation levels, our hunger, our appetite, all of our cueing, it's off. Then we've got a dysregulated nervous system. It is a recipe for disaster. The best thing that we can do is be in a stable and safe space, which is generally our home, and into our routine. So you do your steps, you back off your cardio, but you still do your cardio. Essentially, the reverse diet is to literally reverse you out mirror to mirror in a way of coming into that show. The only thing that's changed is we don't have this pressurized goal.
Yeah.
And again, for new people that have competed for the first time, they have this very strong attachment to their identities and the show and what they look like. And so there's lots of remapping for the eyes that are going to come and watching the body, and it's changing. And, it's a fucking roller coaster. And you can prepare your client as best as you can for post comp, but nothing is going to prepare them more than going through the experience themselves. And so the goal is to improve the experience each time that you go through it. Like I can sail in and out of a prep so easy now because I've been competing for 13 years. You would hope that I was good at it now. But a couple of years, there was lots of learning and relearning and navigating and all those things. And I didn't quite have someone to I kind of learned so much of it myself. And it really wasn't until I started learning about the nervous system that I was like, oh, this is what's happening. And when we're in a collapse, the body just wants food.
Yeah.
Like we use food as a reliever of systems. It's not a regulator. It doesn't regulate the system, it relieves the system, which is why we opt for really palatable foods. So for my advice for everyone listening is eat the same foods coming into the show as you do coming out, and wait for a couple of weeks till your weights come up a little bit, right? The activity's backed off a little bit, the food is higher, and then, introduce like a night where you eat out, but still continue all the habits that you've been before, because the goal is to get you in and get you out as safely and smoothly and hopefully as best as we can. And then, you go into the next phase, which is into a maintenance phase or whatever you're going down. So yeah, it's a really tricky part. It's the hardest for everyone else because we haven't got this extreme pressure. And if we've got emotions after the day that we didn't do as well as we want, or even girls that do, or guys that do really well, they still have this collapse because the nervous system has to come down at some point. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a tricky week in there or 2 weeks for most people.
Yeah, and I think that really applies to both men and women competing. It's like you said before, it's a phase and it's a point in time that you kind of have to get comfortable with whatever's happening in that situation. So the objective mindset you need to go into it is really, hey, the point of this phase is to gain body fat, is to regulate my hormones, is to have more productive training, not stay shredded 24/7 so I look cool on Instagram.
Yeah, that's the hard. It's like people say they know, but they don't really know. It's like they still become so attached to this thing because as well, like as our bodies change, and anyone who's just lost weight or even gained muscle or changed their body composition, you're going to know. People start to say, wow, you look so good. So you go, do more of this.
Yep.
And so we get attached to like the validation that we get and all those things. But the longer you stay there, the longer you minimize your ability to fully recover and progress, and the goal is to always progress. And I think I don't know if you ever had this, if your clients ever say this to you, but for some reason it's come to my mind when clients say, I don't want to compete, but I just want to look like I compete. I'm like, you want to get ready for like literally a competitor stays in that condition for one day, maybe a week or 2 weeks. And you want to do everything you can to look like that. I'm like, you have no idea.
Yep.
There's such a glamorization of the sport and such a misinterpretation or misunderstanding of what it really takes to be super, super lean, while knowing that there are some people that get there easier than others.
Yeah.
But for most people, like, one, it's not a healthy place to live, and two, if you really want to do it, then you have to be willing to do what's required, and that's a lot of output and not much food. And it's just really hard for someone who doesn't have the pressure of getting on stage to do that because it's so fucking unhealthy. Like, because we shouldn't be doing that. That's the funny thing. But it's glorified because we see these people who are of influence to us, and there's a misunderstanding of what it really takes to look like that.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And I think with that, it's like, if your why, regardless of whether you're competing, whether you're losing fat, whether you're building muscle, if your why isn't strong enough to get you out of bed every day to deal with the shit that you need to deal with to get the job done, it's like, forget about it. It's not going to happen.
Let me tell you, I'm looking forward to competing again, but I'm not ready to diet. Like, at all. I mean, so much food. Like, I have no interest in doing that right now, so yeah.
It's a lot. And I say this from me now, like, I did 4 shows last year. I've had, this has been my biggest off season now, and I start prep for next year.
What show are you doing?
What? I think Coben and I are going to be competing against each other.
Yes, I'm going to watch. So good.
So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Meetings.
Oh yeah, I'm pumped. It's going to be so fun.
So good.
So I guess to wrap this all up, for anyone out there who is really confused about what they need to do, or like what is the next step they need to take in order to move towards their goals, what would you say is the easiest, lowest hanging fruit that they can capitalize on in order to get the biggest result before they worry about the stupid little nuances?
Great question. The first thing always is write out the goal. Write it out and get really clear on why.
Yeah.
First the why, and then we're going to write the how. Because the why is great because that's a motive, and that's going to remind you of why the hell you're doing what you're choosing to do.
Yeah.
But the how is going to get us there. And so we need to look at, well, what steps are you willing to take towards that goal, and how are you going to measure it? So, and for someone who's here and they want to lose weight and they've never tracked a macro for their life, the number one thing for dietary intervention is just creating a diet diary, right? So the first thing you might say is, I'm going to start a diet diary. I'm going to write down everything I ate every single day, and I'm going to weigh myself. After 2 weeks, I'm going to take my average of my weight. I'm going to take the food that I'm eating, and I'm going to choose 1 or 2 things that I'm going to exchange for something healthier.
Love it.
Like, that is one of the best things to do. You might say, okay, I'm sedentary. You know what? I'm going to start walking to the bus today instead of driving. Honestly, like I said, the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest thing that you can change. Start walking more. Start tracking your nutrition. Like, just create a diet diary. Don't change anything yet. The reason I say weigh yourself every day is because weight fluctuates.
Yeah.
And so we can take the average of it. And when we take the average of the weight, that gives us a better reading of what's actually happening. And we're going to use that tool that when we start to lose weight, we're going to make sure that the average each week is going down versus what's happening once a week. So we want to start to accumulate these little habits that we're going to do. So starting to walk, starting to move more. If you've never been to a gym and you want to sign up to a gym, start with 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Don't go to 5. You don't need 5. Trust me. Just do 3. I like what's called stretch goals. So stretch goals they stretch you just a little bit. So if you, like I said, you've never been to the gym before, don't go 5 days a week. You don't need to. Go 3. And then you can walk on the other days. And you're actually going to walk every day. And so you're going to have 3 days where you're going to go exercise. Tracking the nutrition so we can start to make some little changes there. Like, really, that's a lot of habits to implement, but they're super easy things that you can implement. I'm a massive fan of calendars and marking things off. So every single day, I have like 2 or 3 journals around my house, and I'll just start writing in them, whichever one's next to me. Write down what you're going to do that day. Mark it off. At the end of the day, how many things did you mark off? Or I like to get like a big calendar, and every single day that I nailed my habit of nutrition or my habit of exercise, I mark it off. And so visually every day, you bet I want to see more marks going across my calendar. That's competitive with me. I get to choose what happens to that thing. And so if you're a visual person like me and you're fiercely competitive, find ways to play games with yourself. Find ways that every single day you're like, fucking doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And when you see a day that's blank, you're like, it's not to beat yourself up. It's to go back on the horse tomorrow because I don't want another blank screen. So finding ways to be playful in something that is important, I think, is a really nice way to go versus being like, again, there's a difference between rigidity and structure. Can we create some structure, knowing that structure can be like flexible like this versus this is how it has to be every day. Although rigidity in the beginning can be great because we're learning habits, eventually we want to learn to, like I said, to have that flexibility and discipline because they go hand in hand. We can be flexible in our approach. We can be flexible at when we're going to go for the walk or flexible at when we're going to train. But the discipline is doing the things. Same with our food. We're going to be flexible with what foods we want to eat, but we're going to be disciplined with staying within our calories and maybe hitting the protein. And we might be flexible with fats and carbs. So it gives a little bit of flexibility, not too much rigidity, but there's still a structure and there's still boundaries.
That is like, and that literally wraps it up in a nutshell for 99.9% of people out there is just have a plan, regardless of what it is. Have a plan that outlines where you are, where you want to be, and the steps that need to be taken in order to achieve that goal. It's really that simple. I think people overcomplicate it way too much.
Yeah. I think a really great question, and it's really cliche, but anyway, I love it, is like, who is a greater version of you? What does she or he look like? And I don't mean look like from, you could add that, but who is he or she? How do you want them to be? What characteristics or qualities or skill sets do you want them to have? Because what you decide what you want is ultimately what you can create. Because we don't just become this version, we create it through our actions, but we have to choose. Like, actually, the power is within ourselves. It's all about choice, the choices we make.
So powerful. So powerful. And I think so many people will gain so much value from your insight in terms of just how simple it is to really execute at such a high level when you just do the simplest stuff really, really well. And I think that's the missing piece for so many people. It's like getting lost in the sea of information, the clickbaity stuff about this is the best way to do something when it's really just about nailing the basics over and over again for a really long period of time, which doesn't sound very sexy, but it is unfortunately the answer.
I don't know why people want to make it so hard for themselves. I'm like, it's not a suffering contest. It's the opposite. It's like, how do we get this done as in the most playful, fun way that we can?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess to finish this off, I'm sure there's probably people out there who are wondering what's next for you. And you alluded to competing and potentially all that fun stuff. What's on the cards for Hattie Boydle in the next 12 months, 24 months on the competitive calendar?
I need to get jacked first. I want to beat my 2022 physique, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
Super full, very dense. And so I've set some goals. Like in the next 6 months, I've got to put on my at the moment I'm 60 kilos and I've got to get to 64 kilos with a conservative approach. Obviously, the goal is not just to gain weight, but to gain quality weight. And as we've named, it takes time.
Yep.
And I just really want to build out my lower body. And then I want to do the FMG Worlds.
Awesome.
I haven't done the Worlds since 2019, so that's really exciting, and it'll be the first FMG Worlds that they've had. It's going to be on the Gold Coast, which makes things really easy. We don't have to travel anywhere.
Yay.
And that's and then of course I want to get as strong as I can. I want to be getting this body to feel as good as it can, and just continuing to learn about myself, I guess. So yes, got to get thick and strong first, and then I can weasel myself down. Conditioning's the easy part. It's the bloody growing muscle. It takes time.
Yeah. And look, that's a great point to leave it on. It's honestly like, even for you, putting in the work is it's part of the process. There is no shortcut. There's no magic solution. It's doing the work, like, unfortunately. So I know you guys have a really cool business you guys kicked off. And I guess where people can find out more about you and the business.
You can find more about me on my Instagram, Hattie Boydle. I take pride in messaging pretty much everyone that speaks to me, unless you're a creep or you're not
unless
saying
you want to buy it.
But otherwise. But no, I honestly do my best to speak with everyone. So if you ever just want to ask me a question, feel free. I will most likely find you and get back to you. And then we have Flex Method, which is our online transformation company, which you can reach flex.method on Instagram. But of course, you're more than welcome to send me a DM as well, and we can get chatting there.
Hattie, I appreciate you so much jumping on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure picking your brain, and I hope everyone got some value from it.
Thanks so much. That was awesome.
Appreciate it, Hattie. Thanks so much.